The Detroit Tigers did, in fact, play a baseball game on Tuesday. We'll talk a little bit about that and the return of Andrew Chafin. That and more all today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Wednesday, February 26th, 2025. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Appreciate you all greatly for tuning in. Happy Wednesday. We are going to talk a little bit about the Tigers' loss to the Baltimore Orioles in spring training on Tuesday. They actually played a baseball game. That in its own right is good news, but we'll talk about it. Then we're going to talk about the return of Andrew Chafin, a fan favorite here. He is back, minor league contract with a big bonus, a big boost in his contract if he makes the MLB roster. We'll talk all about that, where he could slide in. Then we're going to preview Matt Vierling, talk about Matty V's 2025 season that, now that the Bregman saga is finally over, paints a much clearer picture on what that is going to look like for your Detroit Tigers in 2025. Let's start off with this game. One thing I want to just off rip here. It is 2025. Do we understand the technology that is available to us? Okay. I am recording a show right now from a laptop in my bedroom. Like there is so much technologically just happening here, so that how on earth in the year 2025 do we have a baseball game being played at the major league level? I don't care that it's spring training, that there is zero live reporting on. I shouldn't say live reporting. All the beat writers did great and knew that there was not televised, and it wasn't on radio even, and it was in a park that doesn't have StatCast. And like, I understand that this sounds very high maintenance. First world problem, whatever. I understand. It's just mind-boggling to me. Jackson Jobe made his spring debut, and nobody saw it, except for the few thousand people that were in the stands. That feels like a huge fumble on Major League Baseball's part, but maybe I'm just whining because it would make my job easier if I could watch. But like, I feel like that resonates with a large portion of the fan base. I feel like a lot of people really wanted to see and would have tuned in to a broadcast that had Jackson Jobe pitching in it. And Riley Green played and homered, and Kerry Carpenter played and went 3 for 3, and Jace Young played, who's trying to get a roster spot, and Trey Sweeney played, who's trying to get a roster spot. Ridiculous. Anyway, I'm gonna get off my soapbox here. I'll stop crying if you think I'm being soft or being too high maintenance. You're probably right. Riley Green did homer, which was awesome. He also had a single in this game. It's funny, the single was like the patented, ground ball in between first and second base for Green, and I was like, okay, let's lift. And I was overreacting to one at bat in spring training, which I tell people not to do and then do myself. So, hypocritical there. And then he just absolutely, reportedly, I guess, maybe this is like Babe Ruth called his shot. Maybe this didn't actually happen. But reportedly, he absolutely demolished a baseball. No doubter. Crushed a homer there in this game. Kerry Carpenter went 3 for 3. That's always a good thing. I do not know the righty-lefty situation, how he was utilized and whatnot, but got 3 at-bats and got hits in all of them. So we will gladly take that. I'm not as interested with him. Like, if I see in the box score, like, oh, Kerry Carpenter got a single off of a lefty, I'm not immediately just going to like freak out. Like, I need to actually see the at bat for stuff like that. I need to see how comfortable he looks, how he's attacked by the pitcher, what the pitcher, thinks are his weaknesses, how he adjusts and all that. I can't box score watch with that kind of stuff. That would be disingenuous to you all. So we'll see what happens there. But 3 for 3, like I said, we'll gladly take. Another thing that I want to point out, and this is, again, reported. There's no video of it. But Evan Petzold of the Freep mentioned that. Also, shout out Ev, man. Ev understood that there was no video or, again, radio of this game. And for the first 2 innings, at least, and for a lot, my window's open. How beautiful is that? I don't even know if you heard that. Car just big time revved its engine right outside my window. But my window's open in February. It's 50 degrees, sun is shining on Tuesday. What a beautiful day. But Evan was filming like almost every Jackson Jobe at bat so that the people could see what he was working with. We'll talk about him here in a second. But Evan said that Jace Young made a really nice play defensively at third base, diving play, saved a run from his knees, made the throw, got the runner out. That would go such a long way if he ends up being even a sound. I don't need him to be a big-time plus defender. If the bat translates to what it was believed it could be on draft night or what we think it still can be based on how he's hit in the minors and really everywhere he's played in his entire life, then him even being like a serviceable third baseman would be a win for the organization. So we'll keep an eye on that, obviously. I don't think there's too much else here on the offensive side of the ball. I do want to give major props to Ben Malgeri, who is, I think, 5 for 6 with a home run to start off spring training. Guy played a lot of AA ball last year. Pretty good set of wheels on him as well. Would be awesome if he had a big, coming out party this year. He's 25 years old and was drafted in the 18th round of the 2021 draft. That was my first draft I covered on this show. And we talked about him we talked about the whole draft class, obviously, like we always do. So his name will always kind of stick out to me. But yeah, obviously having a great spring so far. So good for Ben Malgeri. Like besides that, Andy Ibanez got a couple of looks. Jake Rogers went 0 for 3 with 3 Ks. Spencer Torkelson got a hit, also had a pop-up with runners in scoring position early in the game, and social media had a field day with it. Cody Stavenhagen of The Athletic continues to point out that Justin Henry Malloy looks really good defensively at first base. Colt Keith, actually on video, thanks to Evan, made a really nice play over at first base as well. I think, the final score is 7-8 because, the offense kind of got away from him there toward the end. There was also an unearned run at one point. I don't know what happened. We couldn't watch it, but I promise I'll stop complaining about it and stop whining. I don't, as I've said a lot over the years and already again this February, I don't care about win and loss in spring training. I could not care less about spring training record or the, win-loss result. I care about individual performances. So yeah, like the guys that have a lot riding on the spring, I think at least their box scores look pretty nice. And then once you start getting into the minor league depth, that's where all the runs started happening. So we'll take that. Let's talk Jackson Jobe. Okay, we'll do that right after this. Got to talk to y'all today about our friends over at Wonderful Pistachios. If you're looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious, crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you, unsaturated fats to help you feel fuller longer. Personally, I love the no shells variety. As I tell you all the time, it's the perfect grab and go snack for busy days, whether I'm snacking at my desk, on a road trip, or just need a quick protein boost. They're always my go-to. And if you love cracking open every single shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are a classic favorite as well. So get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. I need that on a t-shirt. I'm not even kidding. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2, Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in, as always, making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. We, of course, will be back tomorrow, as hopefully we get to recap another spring training game and keep the ball rolling on any news and notes out of camp. And, of course, our player preview series. Putting a bow on this 8-7, 7-8 loss for all of those who... There's a lot of people that really care how I read scores. And I found that out last year. Anyway, Jackson Jobe made his debut this spring. 2 innings, 1 hit, 2 earned runs, 1 walk, 1 strikeout, and the 2 runs came via a big-time home run opposite field on the fastball. That was on video, albeit from an iPhone in the press box, thanks to Ev. The one at bat that Evan posted that I really did like watching was the at bat to Adley Rutschman. And Evan did a great job. Again, go look at his social media and read his articles and listen to him talk. Like, he's fantastic and deserves a ton of praise always. He posted the video of Adley Rutschman, and it's the full AB. The one of those pitches, he really tried to go with the kind of like curveball that hits the lefties. Rutschman, obviously a switch hitter, back foot in the box, and tried to really get that sharp biting. I guess it could have been the slider, angle wise, I'm not really sure, but I think it was probably more so the curveball. Either way, if he can consistently do that, that's absolutely beautiful. Like, that alone, you have that paired with an 100-mile-an-hour fastball, is going to make him really, really darn good. It looks like the changeup is what got Rutschman on the strikeout, swing and miss. I think it was a 2-2 count with a foul ball in there. Just, I really liked how he attacks hitters. And I think that is one of the reasons why I am so optimistic about him, which sounds very like, obviously we're all optimistic about him. I understand that. Like, his stuff is generational. That's never going to be an issue. I don't watch Jackson Jobe starts right now to be like, oh, like, is the stuff Major League ready? The stuff's been Major League ready since he was like 17. Okay. The biggest thing with him is going to be, again, how he attacks hitters and how he attacks in the zone, when he goes out of the zone, and how often he goes out of the zone. Elite stuff doesn't matter if you don't have a good attack plan. And I think, not to like pick on him, and I think that he's still young enough where he could turn it around, but like Alex Lang is a prime example of that. And we've seen a lot of that in his career, especially last season before the injury. So like, with Jobe, one of the reasons that I got so excited for him was when he was in Double-A, high single A or Double-A, and he didn't walk anybody. He only had he went, I want to say it was like 30 or 40 innings without drawing a walk, or allowing a walk rather. It's really fascinating and impressive how he was able to keep the ball in the zone. And so if he can just live by that, he's going to be a darn good pitcher, and it has the potential to be legitimately one of the best pitchers in the American League going forward. So obviously, again, got caught with the home run opposite field on a fastball. I have a hard time believing too many people are going to pull that fastball unless they're just kind of, guessing and sitting on it. But something that he'll have to adjust to. And I'm sure that right now he just kind of wants to show off the velo a little bit. So I'm really excited to actually be able to watch his next outing. Hopefully, I haven't done the math and figured out if that game's going to be on TV. Let's talk about Andrew Chafin, who was signed actually Monday afternoon. So 2 days ago, as you're listening to this, I had recorded my show for the day like an hour and a half or 2 hours before he was signed. And I wasn't going to do all. It's the blessing of being in spring training. We have time. We can just talk about this today. I'm not going to redo a show for a minor league contract, which is what Andrew Chafin received from the Tigers. That being said, as reported by all of our beat writers, there is a big incentive if he makes the major league roster. So there's a few different things that I think could happen here. One is that minor league contract. Like, we, as the general public, does not know all the clauses and stipulations within that contract, at least yet at the time that I'm recording this. So is he could just make the majors out of camp, I think Evan said it's $2.5 million if he makes the major league roster out of spring training. So he just gets that contract. It turns to a major league contract. Boom. That's, simple. I think there's also a route in which he has to get ramped up a little bit. Obviously he's coming into camp late. He's just now getting signed here almost at the start of March. Maybe they're not 100% comfortable or confident with him being, healthy by early in the season. And they go, look, we signed you to a minor league deal for this reason. You'll spend the first couple of weeks or whatnot in Toledo. Then we'll call you up. You'll get that $2.5 million, and then you'll be on the major league roster the rest of the year. I don't know. Maybe I don't foresee Andrew Chafin being the kind of guy that's like, I didn't make the team, get me out of here. Like I'd rather be a free agent again, especially with Toledo being so close to his family, which is in Ohio. So I think that those are probably the two most likely options. We'll see how he looks here. Again, getting into camp late. As far as the signing itself goes, I'm all for it. I think this is actually really, really... This is a really smart move by the Tigers front office. Not that Andrew Chafin moves the needle a ton or is your closer these days. Certainly not. But to get him on a minor league contract, essentially no risk, all reward for a guy that has now appeared in, I want to get the exact amount of games right. I have it written down here. 105 games in a Detroit Tigers uniform. He has played in 105 games for the Detroit Tigers major league team and has a 2.96 ERA. Sub 3 in over 100 games for the Tigers. In 2022, he had a 2.83 ERA. And then obviously last year for the Detroit Tigers, he had a 3.16 ERA in over 40 games played before he was traded at the deadline to the Rangers. He gets traded to the Rangers, has an ERA over 4. He has consistently been very solid for your Detroit Tigers. I think for me, when breaking down what I want to see from him to give me, a lot of faith that this is going to work out and be kind of a solution to another lefty in the pen, not problem, but hole to fill, right? Is he just needs to walk less batters. And I say just as if that's something that's super easy to do. Obviously, that's a lot easier said than done from my chair in my bedroom here, but this guy was great at everything else last year. He did not get hard at all. He did not allow baseballs to get barreled up. And he was elite at swing and miss, getting people to chase out of the zone, and was really, really good at getting strikeouts. 85th percentile in K rate, 96th in whiff rate, 97th in chase rate. 35% of balls he threw out of the strike zone were swung at. That is wild. That is very, very high. So the stuff is still nasty. The stuff's still really good. And on top of all that, he's a lefty. Didn't give up very many hits last year. The batting average against, the expected batting average against, all of that really well above league average. The big Achilles heel for him was he walked everybody. He had a 12.5, actually just slightly over even, 12.5% walk rate last year, which is a bottom 4% walk rate in the game of baseball. Not good. The slider, still very effective. A huge positive pitch for him, was barely hit at all last year. Had a whiff rate of 54%. I cannot actually articulate how dominant that is. The four-seam fastball, 150 batting average against. I could go on and on. I'm just spewing numbers at this point. The stuff is still really good, is my point. He just needs to throw it in the freaking strike zone again, like he used to. This is a something that has kind of derailed him over the last couple of seasons. He had a really poor walk rate. It was almost identical, 12.5% in 2023 as well when he struggled. 2022, when he had the fantastic year for the Tigers, his first stint with the Tigers, his walk rate was almost exactly league average. And he was one of the better left-handed relievers in baseball that year. And then obviously, you go back further, you start talking about his like all-star campaign and stuff. So if he can just work with Feder, work with guys that he's obviously very comfortable with and that he likes playing for, and get the ball back consistently in the strike zone, we're golden. That is the only thing standing in the way from him and a really solid season here. As far as my expectations, I really think that he is probably going to make the team out of camp, assuming he is ramped up and able to, in the eyes of the coaching staff. My point is, I don't think he'll miss the team because of performance. I don't think it'll be like, the stuff isn't good or he's just not good enough anymore. I think it's either like, hey, we're going to give you a couple of weeks in the minors to fully kind of get up to speed with everybody else, or he's just going to make the team outright, depending on how he looks here over the next 3 or 4 weeks. It adds another lefty that has been really good for you before. Tyler Holton and Andrew Chafin have been the 2 lefties in the pen before. It also gives you an opportunity to carry 3 lefties in your bullpen, even 4. You want to go Gunther, Herder, and the 2 of them, right? There's some shuffling that'll happen kind of in that bottom 4 of the bullpen, but I like this a lot. Again, this is, even if you're like, oh, he's washed for some reason, and like, even though I just read you all the numbers, like he's terrible, it's like, okay, like sure, then he's just not going to play much this year and going to be a free agent probably pretty early in the season. Like it is all reward, no risk. I really like this move, and hopefully he's ready and still has that same stuff. And if he doesn't, then we'll point that out too and talk about how it's time for him to hang it up and go move to the farm and enjoy life, which I'm sure he is ready to do at any moment. So let's talk Matt Vierling. All right, we will do that right after this. All right, everybody, welcome back. Your third and final segment of Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. As always, Matt Vierling is always a very interesting conversation here on Locked On Tigers. I feel like at times my opinion of Matt Vierling has maybe butted heads with parts of the fan base. I remember there's one person last year that consistently would comment that I was being way too pessimistic with Vierling and whatnot. My frustration with Matt Vierling in the past has had nothing to do with, well, obviously, like him as a person. I don't know him personally. That goes without saying. But it has nothing to do with the production per se. He had a solid year last year. There's really no denying that. We'll go over the numbers here in a second. It's more so that he has all the tools and ability to be really good. Really good. And I feel like I was constantly just kind of waiting for him to get over the hump and make a couple more adjustments and really take that huge step. And I think that was unfair of me. I think that was unfair of me. I think that is something that, like, he put up over a 2.5 WAR season a year ago for Fangraphs WAR. That is, I don't know what he put up on Baseball Reference. And for him to be as versatile as he is in the field and as good of an athlete as he is, good of a runner as he is, good of a defender at all those different positions as he is, and an above league average hitter, that is a talented Swiss Army knife that I think most teams, if not all teams, would like to have in their back pocket. I continue with the stance that, like, if they would have gotten, like an all-star caliber third baseman, I'd do that in a heartbeat, because then Matt Vierling could legitimately be the Swiss Army knife that I think he's at his most valuable. But I think that the notion that he is going to be, and him and Jace Young, or whatever combination percentage-wise that split ends up being, are going to be the third baseman this year is fine. Like, there is nothing wrong with that. This dude a season ago, like I said, over 2.5 WAR, had a 735 OPS. That is pretty comfortably above a league average hitter a year ago, as offense continues to get lower. 257 average, 312 on base percentage, and a 423 slug. Had 16 home runs, 6 steals, even though he's really fast. That will always make no sense to me. But yeah, like had a really solid season. Didn't strike out very much, was about league average in that department. 89th percentile in chase rate, so doesn't expand the zone too often, doesn't swing and miss too often either. Top quarter of the league in that regard. We saw him untap into a lot more power this past season, which is one of the biggest asks I had of him when we did his player preview last year. It's like, this dude has more power and has, if he just pulls the ball a little bit more, is going to have a lot more of that power. And that's what we saw without sacrificing the average, right? That I had a lot of people when we talked about that throughout last year be like, no, don't sacrifice, don't have a 220 average just to have a little bit more pop. He raised his slugging percentage from 388 to 423, almost 40-point increase in slug, and his batting average only dropped 4 points. That is well worth it. The only thing I want to see out of him this year that we haven't really seen him consistently do at the major league level is there is no reason he should not be walking more as well. And I know I said that earlier in the week. I don't even know who I was talking about. Who was I talking about? There's no reason he shouldn't be. Colt Keith, maybe. I don't know. Who cares? He should be walking more. As I already said, he doesn't swing and miss, and he doesn't expand the strike zone. He has a good eye. He has good selection in terms of, the pitches he decides to swing at. He's a smart hitter. And yet he has a walk rate around like 7%, which isn't, awful. That's not astronomically low. That's about, usually within around 1% of league average. But the on-base percentage dropped almost 20 points from 2023 to 2024. That is where you start. Like, the OPS was still higher. The overall, just offensive output was increased. But if you can keep the slug around where it was and get that walk rate up, again, even like 0.5% to 1%, you're talking about a guy that could be like a perennial 750 plus OPS hitter, which in this lineup, given, again, his speed and the ability to play multiple positions and be a solid defender, could make Matt Vierling like a 3+ win player, which would be awesome for the Detroit Tigers and would make everybody kind of be, I feel like, a lot less passionate about the future of, bringing in someone externally at third base. Now, obviously, Jace Young is a huge component in this as well, and we'll preview Jace Young either later this week or the start of next week. If Jace Young is raking, then it's probably going to be close to a true platoon of Matt Vierling against lefties at third base, Jace Young against righties. Who even knows? I mean, if Jace Young is hitting lefties, then there you go. He'll probably just stay in the lineup more often. But the fact that the reason that I like Matt Vierling and that my perspective has changed so much over the last 24 months is because, aside from the versatility, which he's always had, he's a high floor player. Matt Vierling's not going to go out there and be completely unplayable at any point. We mentioned last year a lot about how much of a clubhouse guy he is, how much of a culture kind of builder he has become. I think that, again, at worst, you're talking about like a 2-win player. That's like the floor. He has a high floor, and that gives you a lot more confidence of like, okay, if Jace Young doesn't work out, if the Tigers swing and miss on Bregman like they did, we're not going to be like the Nick Maton third base era is over. Like, it's not like, oh, we missed out on Bregman, so we're going to get negative WAR from third base. They have a serviceable guy there at a minimum. And if you can just get on base a little bit more, you're talking about, being more than serviceable, which is really exciting. Okay. Shout out Matt Vierling. Looks like him and Jace to some capacity are going to split or I should say share third base. Yeah, it's a big year for, I mean, you can kind of say that about everybody, but I feel like Vierling's role will be the most prominent it has probably ever been going into a season, at least, well, in his major league career, if you want to count the 1 year in Philly, certainly. But I really liked the adjustments he made last year. It is really the biggest thing. I think the adjustments he made last season were very beneficial. I give him a ton of credit for making them and adjusting throughout the season. And if he can replicate what he did last year, this year, maybe even be a little bit better in that on-base department, you're talking about a pretty good year out of third base. Thanks for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. We will, of course, be back tomorrow. I appreciate you all greatly. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. I'll catch you all tomorrow, baby. Go Tigers.